He installed a camera to watch his disabled twins. What he saw their nanny do broke him in ways money never could. For years, this millionaire believed control was protection, but behind the screens, something far more powerful was unfolding. Sometimes, the richest hearts hide behind broken trust. Sometimes, love shows up when we stop looking for it. This touching story will make you question what true wealth really means. Michael Turner built his life from the ground up in Chicago, a self-made millionaire who turned struggle into success through discipline and focus. From the outside, his life looked complete, but after a tragic car accident took his wife, everything changed. Silence replaced ambition, and grief settled into every corner of his home. He was left to raise his disabled twin boys, Ethan and Noah, alone, and he had no idea how. The mansion grew quieter as Michael grew busier. He worked longer hours, convincing himself that providing was enough. Guilt followed him everywhere, even into success. He loved his children, but didn't know how to reach them. Pain made him distant, and distance became routine. Family became something he supported, not something he felt. That gap only widened with time. To keep things running, Michael hired a nanny named Grace. She was quiet, dependable, and asked for very little. In her late 30s, she carried herself with calm confidence. Grace focused on the boys while Michael focused on work. At first, everything seemed normal, too normal perhaps, because soon something started to feel off. Late at night, Michael heard sounds he couldn't explain, soft laughter, whispers, moments that didn't fit the silence he knew. The house felt different when he wasn't there. His instincts, sharpened by years in business, stirred uneasily. Trust had failed him before, and grief made him cautious. He began to wonder what was happening behind closed doors, and whether he was about to uncover something he wasn't ready to face. The mansion stood tall behind iron gates, polished stone and glass, shining like a promise that never came true. Michael walked through it every night, a billionaire surrounded by proof of success and haunted by quiet rooms. The halls echoed back his footsteps, slow and careful, like he was afraid to wake old memories. Every object had a story, but none of them spoke of warmth, only of absence. This house had everything money could buy, yet it felt stripped of humanity. True wealth, he had learned too late, didn't come with square footage or views. And still he kept walking, pretending silence was easier than feeling. The twins' room was the hardest place for him to enter without his chest tightening. He loved his children deeply, but love felt clumsy in his hands, heavy and unfamiliar. Their condition scared him more than any failed deal ever had. Looking into their eyes felt like facing questions he didn't know how to answer, so he stayed distant, convincing himself that providing was enough. Family became something he funded, not something he touched. That distance slowly became a habit he never challenged. Most nights, he stopped at the doorway and listened instead of speaking. Machines hummed softly, lights blinked, and the air stayed still. He wondered if the children felt the same emptiness he carried around. He wondered if they sensed his fear, his doubt, his lack of faith. There was love there, buried deep, but it rarely found its way out. Kindness doesn't always come naturally when grief sits in the room, and grief had settled in long before the twins ever knew words. Downstairs, the staff moved quietly, trained not to disturb the fragile calm. Among them was the maid, who had recently taken on more responsibility with the children. Michael barely noticed her at first, just another name on a list. Still, something about her presence shifted the air, even when she said nothing. He caught himself wondering if she felt the weight of this place too. Some people carry silence differently, like they've made peace with it. That thought stayed with him longer than he expected. Late at night, Michael sat alone with a glass untouched in his hand. His mind drifted back to his wife, to her voice, her patience, her compassion. She had believed in forgiveness, even when life felt unfair. She had talked about love like it was a daily choice, not a feeling. Without her, The house felt unfinished, like a story missing its heart. He questioned where empathy went when survival took over, and whether redemption was something money could never reach. Sometimes he imagined what the house might sound like with laughter. Children running, voices overlapping, life spilling into every corner. The idea felt distant, almost unrealistic, like a dream meant for someone else. He told himself change would come later, when things felt safer, but later kept moving further away, just out of reach. A moral story often begins with a man who waits too long. Michael didn't know yet that waiting had already cost him years. As he turned off the lights and headed upstairs, he glanced toward the twins' room once more. He noticed the door slightly open, a soft glow spilling into the hall. Inside that light, something subtle was beginning to shift. He didn't step closer, but a quiet curiosity followed him away. Trust was fragile in this house, easily broken, rarely tested. Still, unseen threads were starting to pull at old wounds, and someone new was about to walk fully into his silent world. Grace arrived without noise, without demands, without trying to be seen. She showed up early every morning, dressed simply, moving through the house with respect. Her voice was calm, steady, the kind that didn't rush or fill space unnecessarily. She spoke to everyone with the same tone, from staff to children. There was no performance in her kindness, no need for approval. She treated the mansion like a home, not a workplace, and somehow that alone began to shift its mood. The twins reacted to her in ways no one expected. Their breathing slowed when she entered the room. Their hands relaxed instead of staying clenched. They seemed less restless, more present, even without words. Doctors had never explained reactions like that. Michael noticed the change from a distance, unsure how to name it. Something about her made the air feel lighter. Grace spoke to the children as if they could understand everything. She described the morning light, the sound of birds, the warmth of clean sheets. She never talked down to them or filled the silence with pity. Her compassion felt natural, like it came from lived experience. She treated them like whole people, not fragile problems to manage. That simple humanity carried more power than any treatment plan. And the twins responded in ways that defied logic. Sometimes, while tidying the room, she hummed softly to herself old church songs, slow and familiar, worn smooth by time. The melodies carried faith without preaching, comfort without pressure. They drifted through the halls and lingered longer than expected. Michael heard them once while passing by and stopped mid-step. No one hummed like that anymore, not in his world. It sounded like peace he didn't remember earning. He never mentioned it to her, not even in passing. Instead, he listened from afar, pretending it didn't affect him. The songs stirred memories he had locked away for survival. Love, forgiveness, the idea of grace itself. He wasn't ready to face any of that yet. So he stayed silent, watching patterns form without explanation. Control felt safer than curiosity. Grace never asked questions about the past. She never mentioned money, status, or the weight of his name. To her, Michael was simply the children's father. That quiet boundary unsettled him more than judgment ever could. People usually wanted something from him. She seemed focused only on what she could give. Generosity, when it's real, can feel disarming. Each day, the house felt less like a museum and more like a place in transition. Subtle changes, easy to dismiss if you weren't paying attention. A softer rhythm, a different kind of energy. Michael didn't know why it bothered him so much. Maybe because peace had found its way in without permission. And maybe because it raised questions he wasn't ready to answer. Questions that would soon refuse to stay quiet. Michael arrived home earlier than usual that evening, the sky still holding a faint glow. The house felt different at that hour, less guarded, more exposed. He moved quietly, not wanting to announce himself. As he neared the twins' room, he heard a soft murmur, It wasn't the sound of machines or staff footsteps. It was a voice, low and gentle, full of intention. He stopped without realizing why. Through the half-open door, he saw Grace leaning close to the twins. She wasn't singing this time, just whispering words meant only for them. The boys' faces looked different, lighter, almost peaceful. Then something happened that made his breath catch. They smiled, small and brief, but unmistakably real. He had waited years to see that expression, and he was seeing it from the hallway. Before he could step inside, Grace looked up and saw him. Her voice stopped instantly, like a switch had been flipped. The room fell back into silence. She straightened up, calm but suddenly distant. There was no guilt on her face, only caution. That pause planted a sharp thought in his mind. Why stop if there was nothing to hide? His chest tightened with a familiar discomfort. Suspicion crept in, quiet but persistent. He reminded himself that trust had failed him before. People often smiled until they wanted something. Good deeds could hide motives, especially around money. His instincts, sharpened by years of deals and betrayals, stirred awake. A billionaire doesn't survive by ignoring warning signs. Michael replayed the image over and over in his head. The smile, the whisper, the sudden silence. It didn't fit into any explanation he trusted. Part of him wanted to believe it was nothing. Another part whispered that calm could be an act. He hated that voice, but he listened anyway. Doubt has a way of sounding like logic. Grace went back to her tasks without saying a word. She didn't rush, didn't apologize, didn't explain. That composure unsettled him even more. People usually rushed to justify themselves around him. Her restraint felt intentional, almost protective. It raised questions he hadn't planned to ask, and questions, once born, demand answers. That night, Michael sat alone, unable to shake the image. The house was quiet, but his mind wasn't. He wondered what kind of bond could form so quickly. Was it care or something carefully crafted? Trust felt risky, and distance felt safer. Still, something inside him shifted toward vigilance, and soon watching would feel easier than wondering. The idea didn't come all at once. It crept in slowly, disguised as logic. Michael told himself he needed clarity, not assumptions. In his world, uncertainty was a liability. So he leaned on what had always given him an advantage: control. If he could see everything, he wouldn't have to feel anything. That thought settled in and stayed. He ordered the cameras with the same calm precision he used in business. Small, discreet, nearly invisible once installed. They blended into corners, shelves, quiet angles of the house. No alarms, no flashing lights, nothing to draw attention. This wasn't about catching someone in the act, he insisted. It was about safety, about protecting his children. At least that's what he told himself. As each camera went up, the house felt different, not safer, just watched. The silence now had an edge to it. He avoided looking at Grace while the work was done. Part of him didn't want her to notice the change. Another part didn't want to face her questions. Avoidance felt easier than honesty. Deep down, Michael knew the truth he refused to say out loud. This wasn't just about the twins. It was about trust that had cracked and never fully healed. Loss had taught him to expect disappointment. Control became his shield against grief and regret. Faith in people had cost him too much once before. He wasn't ready to pay that price again. The cameras became his silent allies. They promised answers without confrontation, no uncomfortable conversations, no emotional risk, just footage, clean and objective. Or so he believed. He didn't consider what it would mean to witness real moments, moments that don't ask for permission to matter. Late at night, he checked the system for the first time. Screens lit up the dark room, one angle after another, hallways, living spaces, the twins' room. Everything looked ordinary, almost boring. That should have brought relief. Instead, it left him strangely unsettled, like calm before something unavoidable. He leaned back, eyes fixed on the monitors. A billionaire searching for peace in pixels and frames. He thought he was preparing himself for the worst. He didn't imagine he was opening the door to empathy, or that forgiveness would find its way through a lens. Some lessons arrive quietly, without warning, and this one was already waiting to be seen. Late at night, when the house finally settled into stillness, Michael sat alone with the screens glowing in front of him. The mansion slept while he stayed awake, searching for certainty. Footage rolled by in quiet fragments. Empty halls, dim lights, nothing out of place. The twins lay asleep, their room calm and unchanged. There was no sign of danger, no proof of wrongdoing. He should have felt relieved. Instead, he kept watching. Night after night, the pattern stayed the same. Grace moved through the house with routine care, never rushing, never lingering. She checked on the children, adjusted blankets, turned off lights. Everything looked exactly as it should. Michael told himself this confirmed what others believed, that she was simply doing her job, but something kept him from shutting the system down. Then one night, the screen shifted to something different. Grace entered the twins' room long after the house had gone quiet. She moved slowly, like someone stepping into sacred space. Michael leaned forward, his attention sharpening. This wasn't part of her schedule. This wasn't routine. His pulse picked up without warning. She knelt beside the beds, resting her hands gently near the twins. Her shoulders trembled, just slightly, almost easy to miss. Then he saw her face. Tears traced a silent path down her cheeks. Not dramatic, not loud, just steady and real. She wiped them away quickly, as if embarrassed by them. The sight caught him off guard. Michael felt something shift in his chest. This wasn't fear or suspicion anymore. It was confusion mixed with discomfort. People didn't cry like that for a paycheck. There was no audience, no reward, just a woman alone with 2 sleeping children and a grief that didn't belong to him. He watched as she stayed there longer than expected. She didn't speak, didn't touch them beyond a careful presence. Her tears seemed to come from somewhere deeper. From compassion, maybe, or memory. Michael couldn't place it, and that bothered him. It challenged the story he had built in his mind. Control started to slip through his fingers. As the footage ended, he sat back, unsettled. Questions crowded his thoughts, louder than before. Why would a maid carry that kind of emotion? What connection could possibly explain it? For the first time, his certainty fractured, and in that crack, something unfamiliar began to surface. The need to understand, not just to watch. The footage continued into another quiet night, the room barely lit by a small lamp. Grace entered again, slower this time, like she was carrying something fragile inside her. Michael watched closely, his eyes fixed on every movement. She sat beside the twins and rested her hands together, taking a deep breath. Then she began to sing. Her voice was low, almost a whisper, the kind of sound meant for the dark. The lullaby moved gently through the room. It spoke of faith when answers feel far away, of forgiveness when pain refuses to leave. There was no show in it, no attempt to impress, just a steady melody, warm and patient. The twins remained asleep, but the room seemed to listen, and so did Michael. Halfway through the song, his body stiffened. The melody reached into him without warning. He knew this song, not from church, not from memory fading with time. This was the song his wife used to hum on quiet evenings, the one she sang when life felt uncertain, the one he hadn't heard since she was gone. His chest tightened as if the air had grown heavier. The sound pulled him back to nights filled with softer light, moments when love felt simple and close. He remembered her voice, her smile, the way she believed in goodness. That song had been her comfort, her way of holding the world together. And now it was playing through a screen. Michael leaned closer, disbelief spreading across his face. How could Grace possibly know that melody? It wasn't common, not something played on the radio. He had never spoken about it to anyone. The song had lived only inside their home, inside their marriage, inside his grief. Confusion gave way to something deeper, a mix of loss, anger, and longing he thought he had buried. The camera captured Grace's face as she sang, eyes closed, fully present. There was sincerity there, not performance. Her voice didn't shake, but it carried emotion. It sounded like remembrance, like a promise kept. When the song ended, Grace stayed still for a moment. Then she stood quietly and left the room. The screen returned to silence. Michael remained frozen in his chair. Questions pressed in harder than ever. This was no coincidence, and whatever truth waited ahead was closer than he thought. The next morning, Michael went back to what he trusted most. Facts. He reopened files, reviewed reports, and checked every detail again. Grace's background was clean, ordinary, almost forgettable. No red flags, no hidden history, no unanswered gaps. She came from a modest life, steady work, quiet references. Nothing tied her to his world of wealth or loss. On paper, she was just another hire. He leaned back in his chair, unsatisfied. Logic told him to let it go. There was no proof of connection, no reason for concern. Yet the song echoed in his mind like an unresolved chord. Facts explained behavior, but not meaning. And meaning was what unsettled him now. Something about her felt personal, not random. Michael thought about the way Grace spoke to the twins. Not careful, not rehearsed, but deeply familiar. Like someone who understood pain without needing it explained. Her compassion didn't come from training manuals. It came from experience, from something lived. That kind of empathy couldn't be taught overnight. It had roots somewhere deeper. He told himself coincidence was a powerful thing. People crossed paths every day without knowing why. Songs repeated across generations, beliefs traveled through time and families. Still, this felt different. The timing, the tone, the tenderness, too many small details lined up quietly. Faith was not something Michael relied on anymore. Life had made him practical, guarded, but even he had to admit some things defied explanation. Call it chance, call it coincidence, and call it fate. The name didn't matter as much as the feeling. Something unseen was at work inside his home, and it refused to be ignored. He watched Grace from a distance that day, not with suspicion, but with curiosity edged by respect. She moved with the same calm presence as always. Nothing about her behavior changed. That consistency made her harder to doubt. People pretending usually slip eventually. Grace never did. As night fell again, Michael felt caught between two worlds, one built on certainty, numbers, and control, the other shaped by trust, humanity, and unseen threads. He didn't know which one scared him more, but the question stayed with him. Was Grace simply a stranger in need of work, or someone placed in his life for a reason yet to be revealed? Days passed, and the changes came quietly, almost shy. The twins began to smile more often, not wide but real. Their eyes followed movement longer than before. They reacted to sounds that once meant nothing. A voice calling their names now drew a response. Grace noticed first, but she said nothing. She simply stayed present. Touch became something different for them. Hands that once remained still now pressed back gently. Their bodies relaxed when Grace held them. There was less tension, fewer restless moments. Michael watched from the doorway, careful not to interrupt. He told himself it was temporary, a phase. Hope felt dangerous. Grace spoke to them constantly, even during the smallest tasks. She described what she was doing, why it mattered. Her voice carried patience, never urgency. When she sang, their breathing slowed again. That familiar calm filled the room. It was as if her presence grounded them, like they recognized something safe. Doctors noticed the changes during routine visits. They checked charts, ran tests, asked careful questions. Progress like this didn't follow expected patterns. They used cautious words, professional and restrained. One of them finally said it felt impossible. Michael heard the word and felt his chest tighten. Impossible had never been part of the plan. A part of him wanted to celebrate, to believe he was witnessing a miracle. Another part stayed guarded, watching for the cost. Experience had taught him that joy often asked for payment. He didn't trust good news without conditions. A billionaire learns to expect fine print, even in moments of hope. He studied Grace more closely, searching for explanation. Her behavior remained unchanged. No pride, no claims, no need for credit. She met progress with gratitude, not surprise, as if she believed this was always possible. That belief unsettled him. It challenged everything he thought he knew. Each night, Michael lay awake, caught between wonder and doubt. Was this simply care done right, finally? Or was something deeper at work, something unseen? He wanted answers he could measure and control. But the changes didn't fit into numbers. They felt human, emotional, almost sacred. And he sensed the next moment would force him to choose what to believe. The storm arrived fast, loud and unforgiving. Thunder cracked through the sky as rain slammed against the windows. When the power went out, the mansion fell into sudden darkness. Michael felt a sharp pull in his chest and grabbed his keys. Meetings didn't matter anymore. Nothing did but getting home. Fear has a way of cutting through priorities. He drove through the rain with his jaw clenched tight. Every flash of lightning reminded him of how fragile things were. The house loomed ahead, dark and silent. As he stepped inside, he heard the sound he feared most. The twins were crying, their voices small and panicked. The storm had shaken them awake, and he ran toward the sound. In the dim light, he saw Grace sitting on the floor with them. She held both children close, arms wrapped around them without hesitation. Her voice was low, steady, cutting through the thunder. She whispered prayers, not loud enough to command, only to comfort. Words of faith flowed naturally, without effort. The twins pressed into her, clinging to her warmth. They trusted her completely. Michael stood frozen at the doorway. He had never held them like that, never allowed himself to be that close when fear showed up. Watching her stirred something painful and honest inside him. This wasn't duty or routine care. This was love, raw and present, the kind that doesn't wait to be asked. The power flickered back on suddenly. Lights filled the room, revealing every detail. Grace looked up, startled, still holding the twins. Tears streamed down her face, unchecked and real. She didn't try to hide them. They spoke of compassion deeper than words, of a heart fully open. Michael felt his throat tighten. He had built a life around control and protection, yet here was someone offering safety through presence alone. No walls, no distance, no conditions, just empathy and trust in the middle of chaos. He realized how much he had been holding back and how much his children had been missing. As the storm faded outside, something inside him shifted. The house felt different again, warmer, less guarded. He stayed quiet, letting the moment settle. This wasn't something he could unsee. He had just witnessed a kind of love he didn't practice, one that asked nothing in return. And it left him questioning everything he thought he knew. Later that night, sleep refused to come. The storm had passed, but Michael's mind stayed restless. He returned to the monitors, drawn by a quiet unease. Instead of the main feed, he opened the backup footage. Angles rarely watched, moments often missed. He told himself it was habit, nothing more. Still, his hand hesitated before pressing play. The screen showed the twins' room again, calm after the chaos. Grace moved slowly, making sure they were settled. She adjusted a blanket, brushed hair from a small forehead. Then she did something that made his breath stop. She turned toward the wall near the window, toward a framed photo he knew too well. His wife's picture watched back through the screen. Grace stepped closer to the photo and lowered her voice. This wasn't meant for cameras or ears. Her tone softened, heavy with emotion. She spoke like someone keeping a sacred promise. "Your boys are safe," she whispered. "I promised you I'd protect them." The words landed like a shock. Michael froze, his body refusing to move. The room around him disappeared. That promise echoed louder than the storm ever had. Promised who? No one knew about that photo but family. No one spoke to it anymore, except someone who believed she was heard. His mind raced through every possibility. Coincidence no longer felt reasonable. This wasn't casual comfort or habit. This was personal, intentional, deeply rooted. Grace stood there with her head bowed slightly, not asking for anything, only honoring something already given. The screen captured her, wiping her eyes once more. She stood still for a moment, gathering herself. Then she looked back at the twins, peaceful and unaware. There was relief in her expression, like someone fulfilling a duty that mattered more than words. Michael felt a pressure behind his eyes. Truth was pressing closer. As the footage ended, he remained motionless. Questions burned through every thought he had. Grace was no longer just a maid. She was tied to his past in ways he couldn't explain. This discovery cracked open something buried for years, and he knew the silence between them couldn't last. Morning would demand answers he was finally ready to hear. The next morning arrived heavy with unspoken truth. Michael didn't delay or hide behind routine. He asked Grace to sit with him, his voice calm but firm. She noticed the tension immediately, her hands folded together, steady but tight. This wasn't fear of losing a job. It was the weight of something long carried. He didn't accuse her or raise his voice. He simply told her what he saw, the camera, the words, the promise. For a moment, Grace said nothing. Her eyes filled before her voice did. Her shoulders trembled, not with panic but release. The secret had finally reached him. She spoke slowly, choosing honesty over comfort. She told him about the hospital room years ago, about long nights and quiet conversations. She had been his wife's nurse during the final months, not just tending to her body, but listening to her heart. They spoke often about the twins, about fear, hope, and unfinished love. Grace explained how his wife worried about the boys, not about money or care, but about presence. She worried Michael would disappear into grief and work, that pain would harden him instead of soften him. Before she passed, she asked Grace for one thing: to watch over the children if fate allowed it, and to remind their father what love looks like. Michael felt his chest collapse inward. Every word landed with quiet force. This wasn't manipulation or coincidence. It was faith carried forward through time. Grace hadn't come looking for wealth or reward. She came to keep a promise rooted in compassion, a promise bigger than all of them. Tears streamed down Michael's face without warning. He didn't try to stop them. Grief he had buried surged back, mixed with gratitude. His wife's love had found a way to reach him, through kindness, patience, and humanity, through someone he almost pushed away. Redemption doesn't always arrive the way we expect. Grace lowered her head, unsure of what came next. Michael wiped his face, breath unsteady. The truth had changed everything between them. Trust, once broken, was slowly finding its way back. Nothing could go back to how it was before. But something honest had finally entered the room, and it would reshape everything that followed. For the first time in years, something inside Michael finally broke. Not loudly, not all at once, but deeply. Guilt surfaced, followed by grief he had avoided for too long. Regret settled in, heavy but honest. He saw himself clearly, without defense or excuses. A billionaire rich in assets, yet poor in presence. The truth hurt, but it felt necessary. He thought about all the moments he missed. The silence he chose instead of connection. The walls he built to protect himself from pain. They had also kept love out. Money had filled every practical need, but meaning had slowly drained away, and no success could replace that loss. Michael looked at Grace differently now. Not as staff, not as help, not as an obligation. She was part of a promise that never broke, a living extension of his wife's love and faith. Her compassion had reached places he avoided. She carried humanity into a house that forgot it, and he finally allowed himself to see it. With a steady voice, he asked her to stay, not in the role she was hired for, not under contracts or conditions, but as family. The word felt strange on his tongue. Grace looked up, surprised, emotions crossing her face. This was not a request she expected. She didn't answer right away. Forgiveness doesn't rush to meet regret. Trust needs time to breathe again. Grace understood that better than anyone. She had seen pain take its course before healing began. So she nodded gently, without promises. Growth would have to come naturally. Michael accepted that silence. He knew he wasn't owed anything. Redemption doesn't come with guarantees. It comes with patience and change of heart. For the first time, he was ready to do the work, to show up, to listen, to learn. Love, he realized, is rebuilt one moment at a time. As the day went on, the house felt different, not fixed, not complete, but open. Walls once held up by fear had begun to fall. In their place stood something fragile but real. Connection doesn't arrive fully formed. It grows through consistency and compassion. And this was only the beginning of that growth. Healing didn't arrive with a dramatic moment or sudden clarity. It showed up in small choices made every day. Michael began spending real time with his twins, without distractions. No phone calls, no meetings waiting in the background. Just presence, awkward at first, then slowly natural. He learned their rhythms, their cues, their quiet responses. Love started to feel less intimidating. He fed them himself, hands unsure but determined. Spills didn't bother him like they once would have. Each small task became an act of commitment. He read to them, even when their eyes stayed half closed. Stories filled the room with possibility. He spoke slowly, clearly, wanting them to feel him there. That effort mattered more than perfection. Grace stayed nearby, never directing, never correcting. She offered space instead of instruction. Sometimes she sang softly while Michael held the boys. Those old songs carried comfort without explanation. Faith and forgiveness lingered in the air. The twins relaxed into the sound, and so did he. The mansion began to change in subtle ways. It no longer echoed with emptiness. Rooms filled with small noises, unplanned and real. Laughter replaced silence, even if brief. The house felt lived in again, like a place meant for family, not display. Humanity returned one moment at a time. Michael noticed how wealth felt different now, not lighter but more purposeful. Sharing time carried more value than owning things. Success stopped feeling like a shield. It became a tool for generosity, for good deeds that didn't need recognition, for impact beyond himself. He stopped measuring progress in milestones. Instead, he paid attention to connection, eye contact, calm breathing, shared stillness. These were victories no report could capture. He learned patience in ways money never taught him. Healing asked him to slow down, and he finally listened. Each evening ended with a quiet sense of gratitude, not for results, but for the chance to be present. The road to healing wasn't straight or easy, but it was real. Michael felt closer to his children than ever before, closer to the man his wife believed he could be, and ready for whatever change came next. Months passed, marked not by calendars, but by quiet victories. One afternoon, Michael noticed a small movement in his son's hand. It wasn't strong, barely noticeable, but it was intentional. Another day, a faint sound followed Grace's singing, not a word, just an attempt. Michael froze, afraid to interrupt the moment. Hope returned, careful and humble. The doctors came and watched closely. They repeated tests, reviewed notes, checked timelines. Their expressions shifted from caution to disbelief. They used the word miracle, softly at first. Michael listened, but he felt something deeper at work. This wasn't sudden or unexplained. It was built slowly, through love and patience. He looked at his children and felt a clarity he never had before. Progress didn't come from pressure or technology alone. It came from compassion repeated every single day, from empathy that made the twins feel safe enough to try, from trust that replaced fear. Love had done what money couldn't force. That realization stayed with him. Michael began to think beyond his own walls. He thought about other children waiting for the same chance, families who didn't have access to care or support. The idea settled in quietly, without ego. Generosity didn't feel like sacrifice anymore. It felt like responsibility, like a natural extension of growth. He donated a significant part of his fortune to a children's rehabilitation center. Not for recognition, not for headlines. He stayed anonymous, letting the work speak for itself. The center expanded programs, staff, and resources. More children received care rooted in humanity. Michael visited occasionally, listening more than speaking, learning more than teaching. Grace watched these changes with quiet pride. She never reminded him of the promise. She didn't need to. Michael was living it now. Good deeds flowed without expectation. Redemption revealed itself through action. This was true wealth taking shape. One evening, as he sat with his twins, Michael felt complete, not finished, but whole. His life now held purpose alongside success. Love, compassion, family, all aligned. The miracle wasn't just in his children's progress, it was in his own change of heart, and one final choice still waited ahead. Over time, the cameras began to disappear from the house. One by one, Michael had them removed without ceremony. They no longer served a purpose rooted in fear. Watching had given way to living. There was no need to monitor what he now trusted. Control had loosened its grip. Only one camera remained. He chose to keep it in the living room. Not hidden, not secret. A simple device placed in plain sight. It wasn't there to spy or protect. It was there to remember. Moments passed quickly now, fuller than before, and some deserved to be held onto. Sometimes, late in the evening, Michael replayed old footage. Grace sitting with the twins, singing softly, their faces calm, their smiles small but certain. Moments he once would have missed entirely. He watched, not with suspicion, but gratitude. These were fragments of a life reclaimed, proof that change had taken root. He noticed how different he looked in recent recordings, less guarded, more present, a man learning how to belong in his own home. He saw himself kneeling beside his children, laughing at things that didn't matter before. Time had softened him. Love had reshaped him. Grace moved through the room like she always had, quiet, steady, never seeking attention. Family, now in every sense of the word. Her kindness remained unchanged by everything that followed. She had given without keeping score. That kind of compassion leaves a lasting mark. Michael never forgot that. The twins continued to grow in their own time. Progress came slowly, but it came. Each smile felt earned, meaningful. Michael learned to celebrate presence over outcomes. Life didn't need to be perfect to be full. It needed trust, patience, and care. The basics he once overlooked as he turned off the screen one last time. Michael smiled, not because life was easy, but because it was real. He finally understood what true wealth meant. Not what we own, but who we love. Not control, but connection. And that lesson stayed with him long after the camera stopped recording. Michael's story was never really about being a millionaire. It was about a man who confused control with care and money with meaning. He believed cameras would protect what he loved most. But what changed his life was kindness he didn't expect and compassion he didn't plan for. Through faith, forgiveness, and empathy, he learned that healing doesn't come from watching. It comes from showing up, staying present, and choosing love even when it feels risky. True wealth revealed itself when his heart finally opened. So ask yourself this: where have you been protecting instead of connecting? Who might be waiting for you to soften your walls just a little? Sometimes redemption looks like a change of heart. Sometimes it looks like generosity without conditions. And sometimes it looks like finally trusting love again. Because the greatest life lesson isn't what we earn, but what we give. If this touching story moved you, share it with someone who needs hope today. Let it be a reminder that humanity and compassion still change lives. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more moral stories like this. Stories about real change, real forgiveness, and real love. Because true wealth isn't measured in money, it's measured in hearts we heal, including our own. And your next breakthrough might start with the next story you hear.